Welcome to MCP's workflow demo, where you will see the pre-configured workflow from borrower application through post-closing. You'll see how MCP drives high value within 7 user experiences. In this session, we're going to focus on the underwriter and how MCP drives high value for underwriters. We'll start off reviewing a pipeline where the loan has been sent to the underwriter from the processor, go through underwriting workflow, review and add conditions to the conditions module, and then decision the loan. We pick up as an underwriter reviews their pipeline and the loans that have been recently submit or have previously been submit to them. The underwriter also can use their tasking dashboard, similar to what was seen in the processing session, to organize their day. Up at the top of the tasking dashboard, we can see loan 1763 that was recently submit to the underwriter. Upon entering the loan, like other roles, the underwriter can navigate to their loan tasks and receive the loan in underwriting. This will change the status up in the top left, set a timestamp for this task being received, and then add another task for the underwriter on what they have to perform. Tasks will load dynamically depending on the loan program. FHA, VA loans will see some different tasks that populate as an example. As a drawer, the underwriter can open or collapse that drawer. As the underwriter begins their review, they'll open back to the favorites drawer, and here they can see different favorites that may pertain to this individual user. The favorites drawer is configurable, as we can see here. For our underwriter, they'll start with a workflow collection and navigate through the workflow to review details. The 1008 1 and 2 pages are interactive with hyperlinks for the underwriter to navigate to the appropriate pages. For example, if I wanted to review borrower income, clicking on this would take me to the borrower employment information page. Here, I would be able to review income and add any notes or comments to the file. Let's go ahead and do that now. As the underwriter reaches the loan notes module, you'll notice that the borrower communication is hidden from the underwriter. As seen in other sessions, security guides what displays to different users based upon the category of that condition. The underwriter is adding some preliminary notes to the underwriting category. This is just one example of a note, but likely the underwriter would use this again as they begin to make observations on the file. Going back to the workflow collection, the underwriter will proceed to the underwriting conditions module. And it is here that the underwriter will be able to review the current conditions on this loan. Now, there are many different ways that an underwriter can choose to review documentation. We recommend using the underwriting conditions module, given that it has the ability to link key information to particular conditions. Clicking on this homeowner's insurance condition, we can see linked loan data and linked loan pages. Selecting the hazard insurance information linked page will guide an underwriter to a detailed page that includes information on that particular condition. A processor or other user can add in details around the insurance company, but an underwriter also can have access to update. Additionally, observing the owner occupancy status of this, the underwriter can pull up a copy of the hazard insurance that's been provided. Note the document status is here. So many different property type documents are available here for the underwriter to review, and selecting that document will open it in a new tab that can be moved to another window or monitor. On this homeowner's insurance policy, we can see that there is rental income protection, which is concerning to our underwriter, given that this was an owner-occupied property. The underwriter will go ahead and do a couple of actions based off of that. First of which, the underwriter will edit the borrower-facing condition on this loan. This is what will display on Borrower Center or any approval letters that are generated for the borrower. The underwriter can edit this condition to include new language that will be reflected to the borrower. And they can also translate this to Spanish. Spanish translations will require additional maintenance or management from lender clients. Now, based on this discovery, the underwriter can add an additional condition to protect them from the risk of that rental income protection. Here, I'll use the Add Condition button and look for an owner occupancy affidavit condition. This can be added as a prior to funding type condition for other users to follow up on. Additionally, the underwriter may want to add a comment on that condition just to help better educate their teammates on why this is being added. Comments can be added on the right side of the screen next to the borrower-facing icon. And other users will be notified when they go to the Underwriting Conditions module that a comment is present based on the blue chat bubble. When the underwriter continues their review of the file, they may notice on an asset-related condition, after reviewing a bank statement, that perhaps there are some recurring debits or deposits on the bank statement. In this case, the underwriter may want to add a condition to document that. Now, conditions do not have to be added one by one. There are checkboxes next to those where the underwriter can select from multiple conditions in the library or also add custom conditions based upon their findings. This condition for the recurring debit has now also been added. And the underwriter will see linked documents, but also be able to change the language of this condition for both internal and borrower-facing users. After completing those updates, the underwriter can choose to add a dollar amount in here. And when looking at this particular condition, confirm that it is borrower-facing. Now, in the event that this debit is discovered to be something the underwriter needs to add to the loan file, the underwriting workflow does include the key data pages needed to change or add liabilities on a loan. So the underwriter can go to the liabilities page and add a liability for that recurring debit. Once the changes have been added and the liability is included, the underwriter can see what impact that might have on the debt to income on the left-hand side of the screen. If this happens to jeopardize the loan and the underwriter needs to condition for it to be paid off, they can also experiment with what it would look like if this is going to be either paid at closing or excluded from the loan. Let's take a look at that here. You'll notice the DTI update on the left-hand side, while also reversing once that's added back in. It looks like our borrower should be okay, but we still want to make sure that this is documented from what's discovered on the bank statement. Without stepping through a comprehensive review of the file, we can see in the workflow collection the different pages that are needed to review things like ability to repay and qualified mortgage, any affordable housing details, homeowner's insurance, gift information, and also title and appraisal details. So as the underwriter prepares to approve the appraisal, they can review the appraisal details on this page and confirm if there are any repairs or other items needed that might need to be conditioned for as well. Let's go back to the conditions module. After looking at the appraisal, the underwriter noticed that the water was not turned on. Perhaps that is another condition that they would like to add or get proof that the water is operable. To do so, the underwriter can add this as a custom condition here with the property category, determine when this condition needs to be documented by, Set a priority, which helps with searching, and add a description. Now, with all of these conditions, as the underwriter moves through the conditions can be cleared by checking the box here. Additionally, conditions can be added to loan files based upon different criteria. One example is if you have a construction loan, construction loans could be the criteria to add conditions that might be present on every loan. And as the underwriter addresses most of the conditions on the loan, with a few outstanding, they can plan to make a decision for this loan, but before doing so, we'll rerun our DU and take a look at the findings. As an underwriter or other user comes back to this, they'll also be able to sort and filter among the outstanding conditions that remain, as well as the different type of those conditions. For the underwriter, they can run a variety of services here through the services icon. We can see our prior submissions from the processor and other users. And as an underwriter, I don't have to wait for the results to come back. I can submit the order and move on with the workflow collection. Here I'll fill out my HMDA relied upon information that will map to required documentation. Now, while our DU response loads, I'll show you an example of another loan file where DU or LP may not be used, but MCP can be used to automatically add conditions or a set of conditions based upon the loan program or product selected. We'll take a look at that now. On this loan file, DU or LP was not run. We just have a credit report. But if I go to the Underwriting Conditions module, we'll see that conditions have been added for this construction loan type. Knowing that certain types of documentation may always be required on a loan, MCP can automatically add conditions with rules based upon when those should load. This is another way that we can help underwriters be more efficient with their work and then begin to add one-off or ad hoc conditions as needed. As we go back into our loan, let's take a look at those DU findings. Up at the top, I can see the most recent response, and I can navigate to the findings using the services module, or I would be able to see those in my document tracking area. Now, document tracking is a way for processors and other users to organize findings for the underwriter, but the underwriter does have access to go in here if needed. In this case, I'm going to organize document tracking to find my AUS results, and then I'll be able to see the most recent AUS result that I just did. My processor happened to leave one up here for me, but I can see based on the timestamp that this is the most recent underwriting findings. Opening up the findings, I can zoom in, take a look at my updated debt-to-income ratio with the liability that has been added, and I'll also be able to see if other details have been submitted to Fannie Mae with the most recent submission. Going back to the conditions page, the underwriter is going to add some final notes before issuing an approval letter. It could certainly be a more detailed note than this, but just as an example, that is now available, and the underwriter can flag it as a priority for other users to see this. The underwriter can approve the loan by going to the utilities in the top right, underwriting decisions. And this is also where a loan can be suspended if that liability was a larger payment and we happen to come back with an ineligible finding. Perhaps the underwriter wants to suspend and condition a counteroffer for the borrower to pay that off. All of those decisions are handled here. I'll go ahead and click on Approve with Conditions. There are some validations in place to ensure that the HMDA relied upon information was filled in. After the documents have loaded, I can see a conditional approval letter here at the top. The underwriter can manually order an approval letter, or through the power of MCP, approval letters can be automatically triggered based upon the status change. You can see we're now approved pending conditions. Clicking on the letter, I can review the outstanding conditions for the borrower to finish. This letter can be branded or modified to your organization's standards. And now it is available for a processor or loan officer to distribute via e-delivery or to other parties on the loan. For an underwriter, if they were needing to look at any of the results of some of the compliance reports, such as Data Verified Drive, the results from that report will populate into the Drive screen here, where they'll be able to review any of the pass or fail scores and add necessary conditions to the conditions module as needed. The processor or other users can go into the Drive portal and clear the different conditions that are listed here for our fictional borrower, which in this case was a decent amount. For underwriters, there are snapshots available that are taken of income and other details on the loan, and those can be stored in the loan notes module after an approval is issued. In today's session, we saw the workflow for an underwriter as they reviewed their pipeline and tasks that had been assigned to them, navigated through the workflow on the loan to approve a loan with conditions, and also how they're able to go in and review data and documents. Now, as underwriters go through the conditions module and clear those conditions, they can also status the different documents that are linked to the conditions. So if I do have a correct appraisal from the appraiser, and we do have some water that has to be turned on here, but I can indicate that a document is final, which will then change the basis of what goes out for post-closing when they board the loan. So depending upon the documents that I've reviewed, once I receive my new homeowner's insurance, I can add final to that. I know that my sales contract has not changed. I can modify those through underwriting conditions themselves or in the document tracking area that we've seen previously. I can go to a sorted order of documents for the underwriter and then select from those and modify my final application, final loan estimate, intent to proceed, and update those. I don't have to do those one by one if I've reviewed all of the documents here. I can choose which ones are my final documents and update those notes after reviewing in the document viewer. For audit purposes, an underwriter can also run a salary income snapshot that will store the data of the income that was approved. So that way, if another user happened to try to make changes, the underwriter can see what was changed from the approved income in the file. The results of those income snapshots will be available on the salary income page that was showcased earlier. It is here that an underwriter can also add comments about some of the different calculations that may have been done. These comments can also be stored in MCP. If this loan happened to be denied or had adverse action, the underwriter would use the action taken page to update the action on the loan. A date is set, and additional HMDA information that's required would be stored on the loan file with the additional data fields needed for the HMDA reporting set. And lastly, if needed, an underwriter or admin user may have access through security rights to a page known as the loan audit log. The loan audit log will track different statuses of the loan up here at the top and also track different fields that have been changed. Additional fields can be added to the loan audit log, but all users' data can be searched, sorted, and filtered with timestamps to determine what has changed. The standard set will include things that impact the LTV, DTI, and income. Additional fields can be configured for review. In this session, you saw how MCP drives high value for underwriters. We started off by reviewing a pipeline and tasks that have been assigned to the underwriter, went through the underwriting workflow, talked through the underwriting conditions module, and ultimately approved a loan and talked through the denial process as well. Regardless of the decision made on the loan, the appropriate documentation can be generated and delivered to the borrower.